Okay, here's warm-up 8.1. So we're going to find all the names that apply for this quadrilateral. So just looking at it, it's very obvious. It's not a square or a rectangle, but you could check the slopes of these sides, and they wouldn't be perpendicular slopes. They wouldn't be opposite reciprocals. But I'm going to skip that in the interest of time. So I am thinking it looks like it might be a parallelogram. It also looks like it might be a rhombus. It's possible that it would be a trapezoid if maybe, say, those two sides weren't quite parallel or something. But I'm going to check for a rhombus, because if it's a rhombus, then it's going to automatically qualify as a parallelogram. A rhombus is a special type of parallelogram. And if it's a parallelogram, then it's not a trapezoid. So I think that's going to be my quickest route. So I want to see if all four sides are going to be congruent. So we can use the distance formula on all four sides. However, I don't need to use the distance formula right there. I can just count. It's 5 units. It's going from 0 to 5, right? So this is 5 units. And you can do the same thing with the top, because that's another horizontal segment. So this goes from 3 to 8, so that's also going to be 5 units. Okay, so far those two sides are congruent. Let's check the other two sides. I'm going to do that with the distance formula. So here I'll write the distance formula up here. I'm going to subtract the x's in square, subtract the y's in square. You'll add those results together and take the square root of the whole thing. So let's check the right side here. Let's check CD. Let's find the distance here. So I'm going to subtract my two x's, 8 minus 5, and square. And then I'll subtract the y's, 4 minus 0, and square that. I didn't leave myself much room here, so I'm going to have to work small. So I've got 3 squared and 4 squared. So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. When I add those together, I get 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So this side is also 5. Okay? And then let's check the left side of this, AB. So let's see, distance formula again. For my x's, 3 minus 0. And for my y's, 4 minus 0. Okay, and this is all going to come out to 5 again. So all four sides are congruent. Therefore, it's a rhombus. And a rhombus is a special type of parallelogram, so it's also a parallelogram. Okay, so it can't be a trapezoid because it's a parallelogram, because trapezoid would just have one pair of parallel sides. And it can't be a kite either, because all four sides are congruent. Here's a kite down here, right? You got 2 congruent sides and then 2 other sides that aren't congruent. So not a kite either. So it's a rhombus and a parallelogram. Now the most specific name, the most precise name is rhombus, because a rhombus is a special type of parallelogram. It's a parallelogram where all four sides are congruent. So the word rhombus tells us more about this figure than just saying it's a parallelogram would. Okay? All right, next up we've got a kite, and we're going to solve for x and y. There are some different ways to do this. What I like to do is to cut this into 2 congruent triangles. So I'm going to draw in a diagonal. If I draw in this diagonal, obviously those 2 triangles aren't congruent. But if I draw it in like this, they will be. Not just because they look congruent, but we could, we could use the reflexive property of congruence, and then SSS, and then those are congruent triangles. And then corresponding parts of those congruent triangles are going to be congruent, CP, CTC. So x and y are going to be congruent to each other. Not only that, but these 2 angles are congruent. So if that means I'm going to split the 46 in half. I'm going to get 23 degrees up here and 23 degrees down here. Same thing with the 90 degrees. That'll be split into 45 and 45. Now what I can do is use one of the triangles. So if you look at the triangle on the top, I could use that to get x. All 3 of those angles are going to add up to 180. Okay, I'll combine my like terms there. Okay, and then I want to subtract 68 from both sides. And I'm going to get 112 degrees. Okay, that's what x is, and x and y are congruent, so y is also going to be 112 degrees then. Okay? All right, next problem. So we've got a rhombus here. Remember that a rhombus is a special type of parallelogram, okay? So that means that the opposite angles, this whole angle and this whole angle, are congruent, okay? Not only that, but in a rhombus, the diagonal is going to bisect the corner angles. So that means all four of those angles are congruent. Same kind of thing is going to happen on the other two opposite angles. Sorry, my phone went off there. Those are congruent, okay? So right off the bat, I know y is going to be 35. So here, I'll put that up here. Y is 35 degrees, and you can write in the 35 in the rest of these slots if you like. I kind of like to do that just in case it comes in handy, okay? So I know that x and w are going to be congruent to each other, but I don't have a good way to find x and w unless you remember one of the other properties of a rhombus, and that's that the diagonals are going to be perpendicular. And now I'm in business because if you look at this triangle, I've got two of the three angles there, right? So I could say w plus 35 plus 90 is all going to equal 180. Okay, and again, I'll combine like terms here. Okay, so W is 55 degrees, and hey, all of these angles are 55 degrees. So that means X is also going to be 55 degrees. Okay. All right, and next up, this says the sum of the measures of the interior angles of a convex polygon is 1440 degrees. We've got the sum of the interior angles. So the formula for that is going to look like this. And this time we're told that the sum is 1440. So I'm going to plug that in there. Okay, and I want to solve this for n, because if I know n, that's the number of sides, and that will allow me to classify the polygon. So you could distribute the 180. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of people will do that. You could also just divide the whole equation by 180. I think that's a little quicker, so I'm going to do it that way. So 1440 divided by 180 comes out to 8. But remember, that's what n minus 2 equals, not what n equals, so I still have to add 2. So this is not going to be an octagon. It's actually going to be a decagon because it's going to have 10 sides. N is 10, 10 sides, decagon. Okay, that is the end of the warm-up, and I will see you next time.